Hi, my name is Isabella, but my family calls me Isa. Before I begin, I will be looking at my computer as I have written everything I'll be saying today. So don't mind me as I look between my phone and my computer. 2 summers ago, I was 17. I was about to enter into my last year of high school, yet I was completely nervous and frustrated. I was worried I wouldn't get the score I needed to get on the ACT exam to get a scholarship. I was worried I wouldn't get the scholarship I worked every day hard for. I was worried I wouldn't get accepted into my top college choices, worried if I would study locally, out of state, or abroad. I was worried about finances, worried about my future profession. Would I even be able to get my education without getting into debt? Would I? I was excited and scared, filled with would I even be able to do these questions and I want to do these desires. I was normal. I was your average teenager. But 2 summers ago, I began getting pains in my knuckles and my wrists. And 2 summers ago, life began changing, and I was about to enter into the most difficult season of my life yet. So, it's been 2 years, and by God's grace, I am ready to share with you my story, my testimony. Ever since I can remember, I grew up in a Christian household and was brought up by Christian principles. I decided to get baptized at a young age, although I didn't understand yet what it meant to have a relationship, and a serious one, with God. I was introduced to a new church, and I soon grew interested in joining the worship team. One day, I decided to go to a convention with the church, and little did I know, that was the night where I would get to know the presence of God and get baptized anew by His Spirit. From there, I wanted to follow God and learn to praise Him with my life. For the last 2 years of high school, I experienced a shift in mindset. I wanted to become more disciplined with school, so I looked forward to earning A's, building an impressive resume, and taking an exam to see if I would get qualified to take college classes on top of high school classes, and fortunately, I passed. My focus was on three things: faith/church, school, and simply trying to embrace the present moment, to make memories. My life at the time was about getting straight A's, praying, reading the Bible, learning song lyrics for every Sunday, leading worship, and just simply living life the way I knew how as a 17-year-old. In that season I was in, I enjoyed my praise and worship sessions in the garage. I would blast worship music on the speaker and dance and pray and sing and express myself almost every day, all within those four walls. I would sing my heart out to lyrics that would say, I'm going to wait on you, I'm letting go, I surrender, I want to know you more. You pick up all my pieces, put me back together. You are the defender of my heart, and Jireh, you are enough. I will be content in every circumstance. Jireh, you are enough. I would continually say in my walk with God and at times before leading worship at church, your will, not mine, more of you, less of me. Refine me, to worship you I live, and may I worship you in spirit and in truth. Looking back, I didn't realize the weight of all those prayers and lyrics. Looking back, I didn't know what being in that posture would mean. And looking back, I didn't know what I was asking for. I was continually trying to further my walk with God, trying to learn things like growing my faith, trusting, not falling into fear and doubt, as those are all things I strive to work on to this day. I was working concerningly hard in school, getting A's, and building that resume. I began to recognize my knuckles and wrists turning red and swollen and feeling stiff with a mild pain. There would only be flare-ups, meaning the pain would come for 3 to 4 days and then leave. But life continued. I began my senior year and studied like never before. I was working on being successful in my high school and college classes, at the same time studying for the ACT exam, completing practice tests, figuring out how to complete more than 100 hours of community service, then deciding for the life of me what I would write for my college essay. Also praying incredibly hard, asking God what colleges I should choose as my choices in what I should study. Lastly, I was squeezing time in my schedule to practice driving, hopefully finally getting my driver's license. It was school responsibilities, chores, finances I did not have, nor the ability to work due to school consuming my everyday, weekends, and many nights. Church, learning songs for church, leading worship, working on faith, exercising, and a long list of things I needed to do and things I wanted to have time for. But over everything, I felt very grateful to God for every memory made. Thank you, Lord, for those memories. Before seriously allowing God in my life in 2021, I was struggling with depression since middle school. There was hardly a day that would pass where I didn't cry. I went through scary and profound anxiety attacks where at times I felt very concerned for my sanity. For the last 2 years of high school, it was less about depression and more about stress. Every single day, I was living in stress. I would wake up for school and at times for church and not want to face the day. I was not looking forward to the same routine and the same results. It got easy to compare what I saw my life as to what others appeared to have. I was not satisfied with the everyday hustle. I was feeling very, as you would call it, burnt out. My mornings soon began with automatic pain, stiffness, and swelling in my knuckles. It became a daily wake-up call to extreme soreness in both shoulders and collarbones. The flare-ups would still last a few days and then leave, but had progressed to where I would need to miss school and stay in bed a few days each month. My mobility began to feel limited. Whenever the episodes passed, I would feel grateful that the next few days would feel normal. No pain, no soreness, no limitations. Between episodes, life would feel back to normal. In this day, I woke up with so much pain. I didn't know what to do but to go to the hospital. I had no mobility in my left shoulder. If I attempted to slightly move it, the pain was sharp and aggressive and honestly just very ugly. After arriving at the hospital, I was wheelchaired to a few exam rooms. I got a few x-rays, scans, and some blood work done. Afterwards, my dad and I spent the afternoon waiting for the results. While being taken to the exam rooms, I was praying as my heartbeat would increase. While waiting in that hospital room, I was praying as I'd feel overcome by anxiety. I prayed out of fear, and I prayed in fear. I would pray, asking God to allow the results to come back completely fine, to allow everything I was feeling to be nothing serious, for all to be well. Not knowing the cause of the pain, missing a day of school and getting behind in assignments and homework, and needing to choose the song list for the upcoming service for church on Sunday, it was just a little too much, okay? The nurse came back and discussed the results with my dad and I, and had said my inflammation markers were very high and how I would be needing a referral to see a rheumatologist. Well, little did we know that it would take 5 months to see a rheumatologist. And within the next few days, my body went back to normal. We had the opportunity to travel to Colombia to see family friends for about a week. Traveling by plane to a different country, there were no complications, no major pain, no limitations. It was a normal trip. I could travel by plane and wake up the next day without becoming bedbound. There was no need to take Advil. I could eat any food I desired: rice, fried food, desserts, foods made with seed oils. I could wear heels, take a shower, get ready, cook in the kitchen, walk around the city with absolutely no problem. It was a normal trip. I enjoy the trip as a normal 17-year-old who just gets a bad flare-up every now and then. December came and we were set to spend Christmas and New Year's with family in DR. My redness and swelling in my fingers grew more persistent, but many lovely memories were made. being surrounded by a different culture, a different way of life, to see my parents enjoy themselves, hear the people I love laugh and share a tender glance with me, sharing memories so pure, all were like a medicine for me, a cure to all my worries and exhaustion. It was a special trip. It was, once again, a normal trip. I had a few months left till graduation. My church had discontinued services, but I was still working on my walk with God. I tried to work on being more loving, serving, patient, and trying to trust in God's plan. I tried to see past all my worries and fears and just trust and give Him my best to persevere in fulfilling my responsibilities as a daughter, as a student, and making sure I was focusing on my health. I grew more concerned with the direction of where my health was heading. I looked for temporary solutions to feel some relief. I began struggling to fall asleep due to shoulder pain and spasms. I began wearing compression gloves for my fingers as they were always red, swollen, and stiff. And when my wrists hurt and felt weak, I would layer another pair of compression gloves on top of the ones I would already have on. I began switching my habit of wearing my Converse shoes, heels, and walking barefoot in the house to wearing tennis shoes at school, everywhere I'd go, and as well in the house. I began taking the elevator at school to avoid taking the stairs and would need to sit down any chance I could get, allowing my feet to rest. Before I continue, I grew up in a household where we would only take Advil/Tylenol if it was absolutely necessary. I grew up taking homemade remedies, so taking pills were always a last resort. Through time, I had learned that not only those pills, but clinical medicine in general, it's known to be a bit too rough on other organs, even when being successful treating the pain. And being honest, I try to be cautious of what I put in my body. And since I know clinical medicine treats pain, it also offers short and long-term effects. Therefore, I lean more towards the natural approach, holistic medicine. But that's just me. I know when it comes to treatments, I know we all have different preferences. I wasn't interested in treating the pain. I was interested in treating the root causes and naturally trying to allow my body to heal and possibly reverse the symptoms I had at the time, symptoms at a natural, holistic approach. I planned to make sure the rheumatologist and primary care doctor were aware of where I stood regarding how I desired to approach what it was I was going through. Finally, my appointment with the rheumatologist came. Two things. My blood test results had come back positive for rheumatoid arthritis, and the thyroid condition I've had for about 10 years came back as Hashimoto's. That was the first time in these 10 years that we have been told this news about my thyroid. We were always told I had hypothyroidism, but it was never confirmed with us that it was Hashimoto's. I went back home that day told I had 2 autoimmune diseases, and in that day, my body felt pain, my emotions felt wrecked, my faith felt small and intimidated, my hope felt naked and empty, and my prayers were made in fear. I was facing my Goliath, and I just wanted to hide. I cried and felt deep anxiousness over my well-being, over my future. I couldn't tell you what my prayers looked like that day, but I knew I just felt intimidated, and it was a lot at 18 years old. Soon afterwards, I went to another doctor to get a second opinion to be 100% sure the diagnosis was correct. That doctor had told my parents and I the same news, the same instructions, how I need to take the medication so that other symptoms won't be so present, like damage and deformities occurring so much in the joints through time. After both appointments, I left the doctor's office greatly scared. I couldn't help but think about the way my hands could look and how much damage could be done to my joints if I didn't take action with the medicine now. After those appointments, I looked at my hands a lot. I would pray for there to be no damage in my joints nor any deformities. I would pray in fear. Then I felt an internal clock beginning. I couldn't stop thinking about the possibility of damage being done and deformities in my hands. I wanted to know what my options were for treating this. I felt scare damage in my joints would be done because the pain would be profound 24/7. And I wasn't taking any medication. My joints never had a moment to rest. I found myself either not being able to write or write with pain as I'd grip onto the pencil for those 7 hours at school and then again at home. My hands, feet, shoulders, collarbones, and pelvis were constantly inflamed, but throughout the decline I saw my body go through, I kept looking at my hands. I still tried to feed my spirit through it all. Wake up early to read the Bible and pray at school, listen and praise along worship music. I was trying. As graduation was approaching, I began to feel concerned over the fact of whether I would even be able to graduate without complications due to missing so many days of school. But in the end, there were no complications with my absences. Thank you, Lord. I wanted to walk the stage and enjoy that special night pain-free. I also wanted to let my joints rest and prevent any possibility of damage being done. So I decided to take steroids prescribed by one of the doctors for 2 weeks total.
Isabella V. Dominguez.
I prayed, but I think still in fear. I prayed repeatedly for the steroids to not badly affect any part of my body and for my body to react kindly to it. On that day, I stood for about an hour in line in heels, then walked across the arena in heels, walked on that stage in heels, walked up and down stairs in heels, and spent the rest of the night celebrating in heels. The pain was still there, but it was a tolerable feeling. It was how I wanted it to be. A night of special memories with no pain getting in my way and taking my moment nor my joy. I had no success with the ACT exam. I learned the application deadline for my scholarship had already passed. I had no college essay written and no driver's license yet. My health was doing the opposite of improving, and I felt burnt out after devoting the last 2 years of my youth non-stop studying. All the questions I had about my well-being and future and my desires to travel abroad, having some sense of independence, were consuming me. My mom had suggested taking a year off before going back to study so I could rest and take care of my health. Honestly, I don't think studying or working would have been possible for me in my eyes, looking back at how my health would unfold. Thank you, Ma. Really. I was really truly beginning to struggle in being hopeful and confident in God. I didn't know, as some might say, how to let go and let God. I had always heard people say, and I've even said, give it to God or I surrender, but I truly struggled to know how. How can I give it to you, God, when I would feel hopeful today, but then helpless the next? When I go back to feeling the same frustration and helplessness soon again? Truly, I just didn't know. I wasn't ready to give my situation to God, surrendering it, because I didn't truly know how yet. And He still had a lot to teach me before finally being ready to let go and let Him intervene. There was a lot I needed to learn in that season. I had always admired the sense of independence you'd feel after graduating, becoming a young adult, transforming into a mature young woman. But it was far from independence what it was God wanted me to experience. At the time, more than ever, did I need to depend on God, my parents, my family. My hands were growing weaker, so opening a water bottle, putting on and clipping my bra, buttoning up my jeans, all were feeling more impossible to perform by the day. And my feet would gradually become more tired after standing and or walking for long periods of time. So I needed help. I'd say, can you open my water bottle for me, please? Asking while feeling helpless many times. I'd say, can you please help me get out of the car? Asking while needing to completely mentally prepare myself. Or, Ma, could you please help me with my bra? Asking while sitting in my chair, looking down, as my mom would help me in complete silence. For the next year, that was my new normal. As a 17-year-old at the time, I said, I want more independence. When God said, I want you to become dependent on me, that I may take you through this. One saying that stuck with me in this season is, if God doesn't take you out of it, he will take you through it. On that day, September 22nd, 2022, and practically every time I felt scared or prayed in fear, it was all endured and done in a posture of desiring for God to take me out of this hardship, this pain, this situation, my circumstance. It took me a year and a half to learn of no longer having a spiritual posture of God, take me out of this, to then be, God, take me through this. In that very summer after graduation, my family and I traveled to Texas to celebrate my accomplishments of graduating. Since my past trips were normal and with no complications, I'd say, I didn't have the need to prepare myself mentally for what I'd undergo, even with the stage I was at with my symptoms. Sometime before the trip, I had begun researching and learning what foods are inflammatory and anti-inflammatory, what foods to stay away from to control the flare-ups as much as possible. I started staying away from sugar, fried foods, wheat, and red meat. So, with the information I had learned, I had grown to become more disciplined with my diet. We're packed, we're heading to the airport and traveling by plane. So far, all is well. And the pain I was feeling was nothing out of the normal, it was at the usual level. So, we landed in Houston, headed to a restaurant that was known for their vegan menu, and ate food that you would call healthy. After our meal, we began exploring the city, and so far, all was well. The next morning, I could not walk. The action of sitting on the edge of the bed to put my body weight on my feet and taking a step forward one after the other was just not possible. My feet could not support my weight, and my heart became heavy, my strength weary. I felt flushed in tears, frustration, and incapability. I prayed that God would give me strength to walk, hoping that with that prayer, it would miraculously allow me to be capable to walk. And so I tried getting up again, and everything within me screamed in pain. Help me, help me. I simply can't withhold this pain, this discomfort. Help me, please. I needed Advil. And for each day of the trip, I took about 4 Advils. To get out of bed, to walk, to get in that shower and clean myself, to change my clothes, to position my body to wipe myself, to get out of the apartment, to climb up and go down the stairs, to get in and out of the car, and to take a bite of that pastry that everyone else had enjoyed and repeatedly stated was so delicious. I had to take an Advil. With the help of the pills, I was able to still feel a little normal. By that, I mean feel capable of doing simple tasks and to take part in what my loved ones would do, therefore not to feel excluded. But looking past everything, the emotional roller coaster, it was a good trip. Great memories were made, and I was being shown how I have been so blessed with the support I receive from my family, how they helped me to get to every destination. In that trip, my soul and I went through a lot, but God saw us through it all. He used my family to be my hands and feet and my strength to carry on. Soon after getting back home, I was given the opportunity to travel to New Orleans for a few days. I contemplated and prayed if I should say yes to the opportunity. I tried to have faith that whatever I would endure, it would be a memorable, blessed trip. I tried to put my confidence in God with a faith-driven posture, believing He will provide me with everything I need: strength, renewal of strength, more strength, and joy. Yet at the same time, I was preparing myself to go through the same hardships I had experienced in Texas. I viewed that trip with expectations heavily set by my experience in Texas, and that was something I didn't want to go through again. But I didn't want to approach that trip with fear of being convinced of the possibility of reliving those memories of helplessness and anguish. I did not want to be overcome by something that God does not desire for us, to live in fear. This time I told myself I wouldn't need Advil, and thankfully I didn't need to use it. We had traveled by car and not by plane, so automatically my body wasn't under so much stress from the start. Our form of transportation throughout the trip was by walking, and so I knew I had to prepare myself mentally and spiritually to face that challenge. The day after arriving, I woke up being able to walk and take a shower and get ready. I was very grateful I could go the whole day on the strength I had left within me and the strength God would, in a way, spoon feed me throughout the day. Each day my feet would feel raw to the bone, but each day I was able to walk without the need to take a pill, and that for me, that was something important. So, once again, it was a lot for my soul and I, but this time, we could walk. Each day we walked past beautiful European-style architecture, learned something new about the New Orleans culture, and everyone had tried the iconic food staples. When it came to the food, I really tried my best to not feel frustrated about the diet restrictions. I was missing out on gumbo, beignets, Cajun-style chicken, etc. I found myself at times trying to avoid everyone's expressions of how good the food tasted. But I was fortunate enough to find healthier alternatives, and no matter what, salads were always my best choice. But spending every memory made in New Orleans was made with the people I love and get to call family, so that made everything worth it. And after a few days, it was home again. From September to November, I began to feel less like myself. I began to be never not in pain. Pain in my hands would feel as if I had needles placed on my joints, with any movement being a punishment. Pain in my feet felt as if they'd turn raw, as what a hiker would feel after hiking for miles or days, or getting stitches and them getting torn right off. So what did I do? I started learning French.
Lire. I like to read.
J'aime lire.
Je kiffe
Lire.
simple. J'aime lire. I
Lire.
like to read. J'aime lire. I like
Lire. 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 J'aime lire. How do we do this?
passion. Quelles sont tes passions? What are your hobbies? You can reply lire, to read.
Lire.
Next we have écrire, to write.
Écrire.
So if you need to pause this video,
At the time, I was reading a book where it talked about a medical facility who uses a system where the patient's whole body is scanned and they go through various health exams, where they are then guided on a treatment plan to target root problems. I, alongside my parents, felt hopeful towards receiving this treatment. We had booked an appointment with high hopes, but were told I was not old enough to be examined, therefore treated by their system. We all felt disappointed, and I just felt wrecked. I just want to say to all those who are going through disease, an illness, sickness, it's gonna be okay. Don't lose hope. Even if you're tired. Even if you're exhausted. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. If you're still here, God is not done with you. Okay? tried to be hopeful, but felt I failed nearly every time in doing so. I began to experiment with healthy food alternatives in a way, trying to occupy myself to keep feeling motivated. So I began exploring health-conscious restaurants, and with much time, energy, and money spent, I decided to make AIP-friendly donuts.
Last night, as I was trying to sleep, the pain was not okay. One of my toes literally felt numb because of circulation, because of how inflamed it was.
After this, I felt more frustrated and allowed myself to understand one who knows the feeling of bitterness. I would spend each day in the house. On an emotionally good day, I would wake up, have a late breakfast, watch a movie, learn a bit about nutrition, practice my Spanish, do chores, eat dinner, watch another movie, and head to bed. On a more challenging day, I would wake up at or past noon, and with enough strength, I would make my food. I'd typically be done eating my first meal past 3 p.m., and I'd eat in front of the TV, do chores in front of the TV, eat again in front of the TV, then head to bed. And on to the next day in the same routine, and the same limitations and the same challenges. 90% of the past 2 years look like that routine. I had let go of my discipline for God and for good habits. I had allowed my life to be swallowed by my incapabilities and the things I had no desire to do. I began reading the book of Job in the Bible, and I found myself consoling with the part of scripture where Job had laid on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, after everything was taken from him and his health was critical. I understood the way I could, how it felt to feel incapable to get up and to feel stuck in a position uncomfortably and yearning, simply yearning. When my prayer was silent and the only desire I had was to stay in bed, I would think about Job's story. I would imagine what he had felt as he had stayed on the ground, then opening his mouth to curse the day of his birth. I spoke less, smiled and laughed less, desired less, and devoted to God less. My faith felt the size of a mustard seed, even less. The meaning to live felt less. I felt I wasn't living, just merely existing, just making it to the day. I was allowing the devil to convince me that my circumstances in health, finances, and faith will become my reality, my true outcome. Each day I was permitting my joy, faith, and hope to slowly get in the hands of the devil. Every day there were constant reminders that my life had changed. The topics of walking normal, running, biking, swimming, jumping, working, going to school, traveling abroad, living in my own apartment, someone seeing me one day as their own wife, growing old with my health being a blessing and not a prison, all felt far from possible. They all felt like incapabilities. Then there was something I was looking forward to: Thanksgiving in Virginia. I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat what everyone would be eating, so I took it upon myself to cook my own food. I cooked a whole menu: appetizers, main dishes, and desserts. I stored all the food in the biggest containers I could find at home and brought them with me on a 10-hour car ride from North Florida to Virginia. I cooked the food the day before Thanksgiving, as we were set to leave for Virginia on Thanksgiving Day. I was pleased with myself and how good the food had looked, and so I tasted it. And I couldn't seem to find flavor. I was grateful that I was able to cook my food and to even have access to a warm meal. However, I felt a little frustrated that after that effort, energy, and money, I felt disappointed in the lack of flavor in everything, and I got tempted to feel left out again, food-wise, when seeing everyone explain and express how good their food was. But That night was kind and genuine. My family and I got to see our family friends after last seeing them about a year and a half ago, prior to that day. And so that meant they had to see me in the state I was in and process the way I was walking and how I grew fragile and pale and was no longer the lighthearted, giddy teenager they also knew. That trip brought a lot of emotions, but for what seemed like a long time, I was craving to be in a new environment. So I was grateful that came true. After the trip, it felt like my body was expressing to me new warning signs in a way. My ankles began to swell and kept swelling for about a few weeks. My energy levels dropped concerningly each day. I began waking up to use the restroom many nights. I would have episodes of mild numbness and tingling in my cheek areas. My balance grew worse, and the pain in my feet and hands progressed. Automatically, when standing and walking, it was too much pain. When trying to cook my food or wash the dishes, it was too much pain. When opening a container or a water bottle, or changing, or getting out of the shower, I would ask for help. Taking showers became a nightmare for me. Every moment when standing and walking, I would be wearing my orthopedic shoes. But when taking a shower, the lack of support, barefooted, only left me to feel frustrated, weak, completely dragging every time getting in and out of that shower. There were many times where I would only shower once a week. It became just too much for me. But then other things became too much. Getting out of bed was too much. Walking from the couch to the bathroom, changing into new clothes, making myself food, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, making my bed was too much. And being around family, people, was too much. Being asked, "How are you? How are you feeling? Do you feel any better? So, what are you doing? Are you in school? Are you working?" And being told, "You're strong, you'll get better, this will pass." I was grateful I even get to have that support, but it was just all too much for me. It all stirred within me frustration, helplessness, an incapability, and an anger at times. Since the pain was just too much, those in my household, my mom, my dad, my sister, did for me things I could not do for myself. They cooked for me, they washed my dishes for me, they made my bed for me, they folded my clothes, they assisted me in the shower, they brushed my hair, they washed my hair. Today was too much for me, tomorrow is too much for me. I woke up each day with that heavy mentality. Within each step and every movement made, it was a reminder that my life had changed. And within every night, as I'd struggle to get in bed, out of bed, wake up multiple times a night to pee, lasting more than an hour to fall back to sleep, it was all a reminder that I had changed for the worse. I was growing more numb, feeling like I had nothing left within me, nothing left to give, nothing left to give as a daughter to my parents, a sister to my siblings, and as a child of God. My praise became a stranger and singing songs claiming, "I trust you," or "I'm going to wait on you," would have only left me to feel like a hypocrite. I grew more pale and fragile. My energy levels began declining badly, to points where I'd feel like passing out. Later on, we found out these symptoms were due to anemia. My bed sheets began weighing too heavy for my hands and shoulders. I would use both hands to turn doorknobs and could no longer lock/unlock the front door of the house with the keys, not even with two hands. Feeling in the right heel of my foot had gone numb and with a tingling sensation. I was peeing excessively and urgently, to where due to not being able to walk at a normal nor fast pace, many times I would end up peeing on myself. When waking up in the night and morning to use the restroom, I would have to drag my feet and grip onto the walls and desperately onto the first item I see so I could find my balance, so I wouldn't fall. When going to any event that would require walking, I would seek wheelchair assistance to preserve the energy and pain of my feet. I grew scared for my well-being. I needed treatment. I had found a practice nearby who treats patients using a natural approach of detox, exercise, hormone balancing, and supplementing. After my first appointment with the doctor, I soon began my 6-month treatment plan. I was to remove certain foods and reintroduce them towards the end of the treatment. I would detox on shakes and take a new set of supplements every phase of the treatment. I began to feel hopeful again.